I'm going to be touching here on some issues that I've probably covered before, but I believe it's a very topical subject. I'm going to be talking about gun control, gun legislation, gun regulation, and in my opinion, the lies of the NRA. Now, I know this is a deeply divisive subject in America, um, and that's inevitable when we're talking about life and death. Um, I've never really understood the gun lobby. I've never really understood how they can so stubbornly defend a situation that is intolerable. And there's several points I want to raise as to why I take issue with them. I've been quite colourful on this subject on certain videos um, with people I believe are just representing the very intolerant, extreme face of the gun lobby. Um, and it just baffles me, to be quite frank. Um, Here's the starting point I want to make. The issue isn't really about for or against guns. I know there are some gun regulation advocates, some gun control advocates that would like to see all guns banned, but I think most of those in leadership positions are not calling for that at all. Um, Incidentally, those who do want guns banned, you know what? The First Amendment defends their right to that view. And frankly, I don't blame them. Personally, I don't really believe that's the best way. I don't think it's realistic. Um, but I do understand where they're coming from. They're fed up. They're utterly fed up. Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with people who own guns and who are responsible gun owners. By that, I mean if they have a firearm, they keep it away from children. They only use it for protecting their family, for hunting, or for sports. If they're a farmer, for protecting their livestock. Those are all legitimate reasons. The people I have no respect for is the likes of the open carry crowd who bring their firearms into public places simply because they can. Um, and it's pretty apparent that a lot of these people have an insurrectionist mindset. Um, I try to look at both sides on this because I know it is a polarizing subject. One of the main claims from the gun lobby is this thing about gun grabbing. Now, in the 7 years that Obama has been president, almost 7 years, I'm yet to see a single example in video or in the news source or anything else of a genuinely responsible gun owner having their firearm taken away. I'm yet to see a law enforcement officer go into a gun owner's house and take their gun away and saying like it's a federal action or something like that. I'm yet to see that. Where there have been cases of guns being taken away is from people who are legitimate threats. And even that is extremely rare. So this is one of the false narratives I find intolerable about the gun lobby. They accuse gun control advocates of being dishonest, but let's look at what the sort of narrative that they use: fear mongering, trying to scare gun owners into believing that their guns are going to be taken away. If that was the case, do you not think after 7 years Obama would have tried that? Like really pushed for it? No, he hasn't. In fact, many advocates of gun regulation would say he has done enough. Um, I'll never really understand the mentality of gun extremists. Um, and I have a message. I say this on all the videos. If you're a gun owner, I'm not against all guns. I appreciate that in a country like America, there is a gun culture. I get that. And if I was growing up in rural Wyoming or somewhere like that, would I own a gun? Maybe, maybe. So I'm not against all guns, and I understand the culture. What I can't accept is stupidity and a stubborn refusal to accept that America has a unique problem. This is something that I find baffling. I mean, when are they going to wake up and realize that there is an exceptional problem here? You do not get the same level of spree shootings in other countries. You just don't. You don't get this all the time, i.e., every single month we hear about a spree shooting in America. You simply don't get that in pretty much any other developed democracy. You just don't. You don't get it in Japan. You don't get it in Australia. You don't get it in Britain. Even in other Western countries that are more like the US, with slightly more lax um, gun legislation, such as Canada and Germany, which are a bit more relaxed than the UK. Even those countries don't have the same level of gun violence. America soars ahead. Soars ahead. I think partly this is because the NRA used to be, from my understanding, largely free for politics, but sometime in the late 70s, this is my understanding of the situation, and I may be wrong about this, but sometime in the late 70s it began to be very politicized. Um, it's not quite black and white as a Democrat-Republican situation, because there have been Democrats who have been very much in favor of guns, and there has been Republicans in favor of gun regulation. But broadly speaking, the Republicans are more, certainly that's apparent now. So sometime in the late 70s, this became politicized. The NRA is a politicized movement. There's no question about it. No question about it. And it's a very influential organization. I don't want to give them too much credit because I don't believe that they're unstoppable. And I do believe that common sense has prevailed on a number of occasions. Um, but there's a lot of false narrative out there. One example is that this idea that, oh, well, look, there's shootings in gun-free zones. So how does that work out? Well, you have to look at the fact that in big cities where there is high levels of violence, for example, from criminal gangs, I don't think you can blame the legislation in those cities. You have to look at the source, where the guns are coming from. Where are they coming from? Gun show loopholes. Um, I think that there's just a lot of false narrative coming from the gun lobby. And in many situations, when I've got into debate with them, they can't produce an argument, so they just call me names. Now, to be fair, I'm not entirely diplomatic myself, as I do feel frustrated with their bullshit. But the point is, I will produce arguments, and in most situations, they really can't produce much of a valid argument. Um, Online, it does seem to be that there is the balance is not, there's a lot more videos that are pro gun lobby than pro regulation. So I do wish that the gun regulation groups would get a bit more active online, balance things out a bit. Um, I just can't understand the warped thinking that the Second Amendment is more important than the First Amendment. The reason I'm saying that is because gun extremists do want to silence their opponents. Um, this has been seen time and time again. Um, I love America. I love many things about America, but this is the number one issue that would stop me ever, or it would seriously prevent me from wanting to live in the United States. If I ever want to live in another country, this would be something. If I ever had a situation, say for example, I got a job in the States, I'd have to think very, very carefully about it. Um, maybe context is important. Maybe if I was living in Alabama or Arkansas or another state that had a very big gun culture, would my views be altered? Maybe, maybe, but I don't really see that happening. I mean, I would have a gun for probably, if there was an area with high crime, I'd probably have a gun to protect my family. In fact, I almost certainly would. So I don't have an issue here with gun ownership. That is not my issue. But my issue is the distortion of extreme gun lobbyists. My issue is the fact that they twist the Second Amendment. Because when the founding fathers spoke about a well-regulated militia, I'm sure they did not have in mind any Tom, Dick, and Harry carrying any sort of firearm into a public place. I mean, this is crazy. And I just can't comprehend how this situation can continue. And another point, they like to present it as namby-pamby liberals are for gun regulation. That's not the case. There are retired generals who know something about firearms who are saying that this situation needs to be changed. I cannot stand the hypocrisy of the gun lobby because whenever there's a massacre, they come out with crocodile tears and say how sorry they are for the victims. Yet they're the very people who stand in the way of any change happening. This mentality of, oh well, criminals are going to get guns anyway, so let's do nothing. In my view, it's cowardly, it's stubborn, and it's shameful, frankly, when something can be done. Are gun regulation advocates saying that gun regulation will stop this never-ending cycle of gun violence? No, I haven't seen anyone claim that. I think there'll always be a problem with gun crime, but there's no excuse to not try. I believe if there is federal, nationwide action, it can change. I do think there could be a positive change. There needs to be a much tougher line on gun show loopholes. The NRA needs to be greatly reduced in influence because, as far as I'm concerned, it's a despicable organisation, a very dishonest organisation. I mean, gun lobbyists, are you really happy to be represented by the likes of Ted Nugent? Leaving aside the whole gun argument, look at his racist views. You know, are you happy to be represented by someone like that? I'm well aware that I don't make myself popular with these videos, but in the spectrum of time, there has to be a balance. I'm not going to change anything with these videos, but if I can add my voice to balance things out a little bit, then so be it. I just don't get this at all because the rest of the world looks at the United States and thinks, how can this madness continue? It just makes no sense. I don't accept the argument that criminals will get guns anyway, so we should do nothing. I think it's very. If you had, for example, a massive health pandemic, say a virus broke out, no doubt the same people would be demanding that the government does something. So why is it acceptable for this gun crisis to continue, gun violence crisis? And another thing, the analogies with cars is stupid. Cars are not designed to kill, and cars are regulated. This idea that, well, road accidents cause so many deaths a year, so let's ban cars. It's a very phony and misleading argument. Firstly, no one's talking about all guns being banned. Secondly, there's a fundamental difference. Cars are designed as a mode of transport. Guns are designed to kill. That's the bottom line. Um, so leave it there. I just think it's a tragic situation. And the stubborn mentality and the lies, and frankly, the thuggish behavior of gun extremists. I don't know how American gun regulation advocates have the patience they do. I think they're very brave people because are taking a risk. I wouldn't put past some of these extremists to, target people that they don't agree with because it is a lot of them have gun fantasies, frankly. This has been seen on numerous occasions. I mean, look at what happened to Congresswoman Gabby Gifford. She was shot after Sarah Palin and other loudmouths basically fired up the rhetoric. Now, I'm not saying that Sarah Palin was personally responsible, but she does bear some responsibility. That's what happens when politicians pander to the gun lobby. It scaremongers, and then it riles up lone cranks. True, you get mental health problems in other countries. You get angry people in other countries. You get criminals in other countries. But the United States of America is unique when it comes to developed democracies. People like compare it to Mexico and Honduras, El Salvador. There's a big difference. Mexico's in a state of political war. It's a very different situation. Honduras and El Salvador are developing countries with very questionable democratic records. So you can't make a rational comparison. A better comparison is to compare the United States with other democratic democracies. I just hope this tide reverses. I don't want to see all guns banned. That's not what I'm calling for. It's not what I want to see, and I don't think it would be realistic. So my message to other gun regulation advocates is that approach won't work. Um, I really don't think it'll work. Um, I'll leave it there. But massacre after massacre after massacre, nothing ever seems to change. There's a few days of mourning and everyone says how awful it is, then it's back to the norm. And I do sympathize with President Obama because he must, as as head of state, he must want to do a lot more, but he can't. His hands are tied by a stubborn Republican Congress that have their head in the sand on this issue.